friend. Welcome to the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. I'm your host, Emily Cleghorn. This podcast is for mamas navigating childhood trauma while also walking through mamahood. Together, we will empower each other to connect with who we were created to be versus who we were told to be in our trauma. I'm so excited that you've decided to take some time out of your day to join me and tune in. I hope you find this podcast uplifting and empowering. Let's get to it. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. Today, we are having a conversation with Isabella Thor. Welcome, Isabella.
Hi, Emily. I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited for our conversation today. So let's get started. Let's just dive right in. And I'm going to have you share a bit of your story, a little bit of an introduction, how you got to be where you are now.
Absolutely. So, about me. So, what I do right now is I'm a nutritional therapy practitioner. And so now all I do day to day is work with people one-on-one. And I really focus on women's health, mostly because that's what I really dealt with myself for about a decade. But I didn't really start out there. I didn't start out helping women with getting painless periods again or just, recovering their fertility. I started with studying physics and philosophy, like completely the opposite of what I'm doing now. But I was so into those other subjects because I had that health part figured out. But once I got into university, all those stable factors that I had with my family that really gave me that health foundation just slowly withered away. And so I experienced deep depression, severe pain during PMS symptoms and all of that sort of thing. And so I just had to switch my path completely. I started to go into a master's of philosophy, if you can believe it. I had to quit. I had to quit because I was on the brink of, really suicidal thoughts. So I really had to stop. And that's when I found the Nutritional Therapy Association. And they have an excellent education program for anyone who wants to learn about how to use food, how to use the basic health foundations of the body to recover your well-being. And I really needed to recover a lot. So that's how I got here. And yeah, it's been quite a journey, like 10 years.
Yeah, I love how you are working with women to help them use food as medicine, and in particular, recovering their fertility and helping them to achieve painless periods, because PMS and cramps and all of those things that have been normalized with the monthly cycle of a woman are not normal. They are a product of our lifestyles and our stress responses and all of this stuff that's going on. So can you share a little bit of insight into how a woman can change her perspective of using food as medicine?
I love that you're already on board, Emily, because honestly, the first, like, taking one more step back from that conversation and what do we do? It's the first conversation that needs to happen really is, what? It's not normal?
Exactly.
What?
Exactly.
Right? And you just, oh my goodness. And the very first thing I usually talk to women about is, in what other part of your life is pain a normal thing at all. Like at anything, you break your leg, you're in pain, it's a sign from your body that something has gone awry, and it's hormonal, it's based
Mhm.
on our food, it's based on our stress, everything you just listed. So thank you for saying all that. But yes, it's mind-blowing just to consider that first part. Women really need someone to ask them, is it really normal for you to feel pain regularly and you're not diagnosed with a chronic condition of some kind?
Mhm.
Like, period and stop. You have rheumatoid arthritis, that's constant joint pain, for example, or colitis, that's inflammation of your colon. Like, these things are huge disease processes, and yet you're just a woman and you're just expected to go through this horrible pain every month. And
And
it's deeper. I mean,
continue
oh,
life as normal.
oh my gosh, yes. Just go to work and um take care of your kids and just pop the painkillers because obviously you're deficient in painkillers like Advil. Like, no. And honestly, when I just ask that simple question, like the whole big part of their mind just opens up and they're like, finally, I'm so glad.
Mhm.
And oh my goodness, I know you work with women, and I bet you know how intuitive women are, how and like how well they pay attention to their bodies. And we all know when we're curled up in like with pain from cramps that holy smokes, this is not normal. I should probably not need to be taking Advil and continuously needing to take more Advil as time goes on to just to have the same relieving effect. Yeah, it's absolutely not normal. And that we're so intuitive, aren't we? Like we know something's up.
Yeah, so how do how does one begin the transition from
Mm,
experiencing a painful period or painful ovulation? Some people experience both. I was one
that's
of
right.
those people before I made some changes. Um,
Oh, good.
how do they begin to use food to make a shift?
Excellent, excellent question. You begin, I always begin with looking at what you're eating. I have people take a food and mood journal, write down for a few days, what are you eating? From a nutritional therapy standpoint, I just look at overall how do you break down the food that you're eating? How much protein, how much fat, and how much carbohydrate? Those are the big three I'm looking at. And I'm looking at whether or not you have a pretty decent ratio balance between all three. And number one, pay attention, this is really important. Number one thing that all of the clients I've worked with lack is protein. High
Mhm.
quality, well sourced protein in their life. We're so deficient in it. So, if we're just talking about food, what you're putting on your plate every day, I want people to think about how can I add more protein every meal? Just pick one thing. Can I add one egg to every meal? Or better yet, can I have some bone broth? I really like to have them focus on whole meat sources.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, it's a game changer. Just that one macronutrient, protein. You need it for so much. Like just think about the whole menstrual cycle in general. You you're building up the lining of your uterus and then you're shredding it. And all of that requires so many resources, and a huge part of it is protein. All of your cells in your body, they're composed in quantity. It's mostly composed of protein. Uh, so imagine years of not eating enough, your body will slowly just start to prioritize, really.
Mhm.
Um, I guess it's not as important for us to build a really nice, complete uterine lining this month or make enough hormones. That's a big one
Mhm.
for you to complete the cycle
Mhm.
and for your follicles to erupt, which is the technical term. And so they might just not erupt and they might just form into cysts and stick around. And then you might be suddenly diagnosed with PCOS or it's a whole, it all starts at the top. Your body's always asking itself, what resources do I have right
Mhm.
today? And I have the priority to keep your brain running and keep you breathing
Mhm.
and relatively warm. And if you don't have enough resources to do any more than that, your body will absolutely do the smart thing and not do all those extra fancy things like hormone production. Oh my goodness, I love talking about hormones.
Yeah. So just to add to what you're saying, Isabella,
Yeah.
when you are a trauma survivor and
Mm.
you've grown up in a chaotic, stressful environment, your stress response at some point may or may not be, for me it was, get stuck in the on position, meaning that your cortisol production is going overtime, which is fine if a bear is chasing you down a woody path or
Yeah.
there's something, a, a traumatic event happening that requires you to be producing a lot of cortisol. However,
Yeah.
if you are living with your stress response activated for a
Mm.
prolonged period of time, when your body is producing cortisol, it is not producing other hormones.
Amen.
And on
And
top
keep
of
going.
that, your digestive system is not functioning at an optimal level, meaning that your body is going into its reserves of vitamins and minerals, things that it keeps on hand, kind of like your emergency bank fund for if emergency expenses come up, to fill
Mm.
in some of the gap. However, if you are living for a prolonged period of time in this state, it will produce vitamin and mineral deficiencies,
Yes.
which equal disease.
Exactly.
So, your trauma not only affects your digestion and
Mm.
your nutrient base, but all of that comes together and plays into your fertility and your monthly cycle. All of
Yes.
it. It is not in isolation.
I really like that you mentioned the whole cortisol system right there, especially when it's stuck on the on spot. The number one thing we learn is that we learn what each there's two systems of the body. There's the
Mhm.
sympathetic state, like you said, and the parasympathetic state. And in particular, when you talked about the digestive system, which I really love that you brought up, the digestive function of assimilating, breaking down, and absorbing your body, all those steps literally can't be turned on if you are in a sympathetic state. This is what we learn in nutritional therapy. It's absolutely amazing and such basic information. Just imagine there's so many women out there, especially when they get to around the menopausal age and slightly older, they are experiencing they're getting their gallbladders cut out, a lot of them. And a huge thing that they don't know is that if they're stuck in the sympathetic state, sorry, their gallbladder can't actually release the bile that is needed for proper fatty acid digestion. That's incredible news. And you think, is it surprising that it's actually a lot of nurses, a lot of high stress occupation women in their menopausal age that happen to have this particularly awful thing that they needs to happen to them where their gallbladder gets cut out. Why? Because they're always on the go. They never have time to eat for themselves. They don't take a pause, take a few breaths before eating, and then start eating because they're always on call. So yeah, it's absolutely essential. And if we bring it back to the hormones that are required for fertility, um, a big thing I ask my clients is, how is your libido? Are
Mhm.
you interested at all in any sort of intercourse, whether with yourself or a partner? And um, a lot of the time, it's just completely shut off.
Mhm.
Why? Because your body isn't even able to create those lovey-dovey hormones that are interested
Mm.
in that
Yeah,
sort of activity.
libido
No.
isn't a function that is needed for survival.
Yes.
That's a pleasure. That's something else.
There's a bear right there. God's sakes. Oh my goodness. Oh, yeah, too bad. Reproduction isn't life or death. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
So how how does one move into using food as medicine? What are the things that they need to be looking for?
What are the things you need to be looking for? What comes to mind is the top deficiencies I'm seeing specifically for severe menstrual cramp clients of mine. Uh, Number one, it's your mineral status. So how overdrawn are you on your mineral status? How many years have you been running low and not being able to build enough blood to work enough enzymes in your body? Okay, so that's where I begin. And I, it's amazing what happens to people when you just give them a nice quality source of minerals, and they light up because it's like a spark plug. That's what minerals are. On all of the little reactions that happen in our body, they're spark plugs. They lower the activation energy required for us to do anything. So people get more energy. The cramps get less severe. Why? Because your body is able to produce the necessary hormones now and deal with toxicity in the cells and bring them out. So I'm not sure how much you talk about minerals on your show, but there are the two minerals I'm talking about are fulvic and humic acid.
Mhm.
And these are, or they're not acids, they're complexes actually. So they're suspended, they're minerals, various minerals suspended in water. So they're in an ionic solution. And they're basically sourced from ancient dead plants. Like, wow. So you can imagine it's super, super concentrated in the essential minerals for life. And yeah,
Does it matter, just to extend that just a little bit,
yeah.
does it matter if a woman begins to take the synthetic state of folic acid or the natural state of folic acid?
Yes. So folic acid or folinic acid, which is preferred, but that is actually a different vitamin. So that is a vitamin B, and the what I'm talking about is a complex called fulvic acid with a U.
Ah.
It's very important. I mean, I can kind of hear what you're asking because I get asked this all the time. There's absolutely you if you're taking a B6. Now, I think it's this B vitamin, folate, is really important to take in a methylated form because a lot of us have problem converting folic acid into a usable folate form inside our bodies. But yeah, B vitamins are also huge. And where do you get them? Protein. It's all
Hmm.
coming back, right? So you could always supplement with folate acid, but get it from protein if you can. It's really, really profound. Just getting enough protein.
It's huge.
Absolutely. It sounds like you know a lot about folic acid, eh? Since you asked, is it important? Of course it is.
Yeah. Um, Managing stress is also a huge part of regulating and minimizing the pain in your
Mm,
menstrual cycle.
absolutely.
So,
Um,
are there ways that women can minimize their stress, perhaps environmental, um, with the food that they're eating?
Minimizing stress, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's when it comes to stress, you really just want to make sure that your let's see, reserve of vitamins, specifically the fat soluble vitamins, is up and high. So we're talking about vitamin D, vitamin A, these things that help your nervous system do its job so that there's a lower level of stress overall on your immune system. That is such a big deal. And this is something that you don't have to think about. The nervous system just rolls along in the background. And when you are deficient in those vitamins, your nervous system has a lot harder time dealing with basic stressors like colds and that sort of thing. And that includes stressful, painful, like the anticipation of pain, for example. This is a stressful thing for your mind to think about. And so, number one, that will definitely help. And you can get those through food. It's really hard to get that through whole foods because we don't eat goose liver like our grandmothers used to eat, or great grandmothers. And those are extremely high in vitamin A and vitamin D and all that. Um, but yeah, but so for stress in particular, I don't rely as much on foods to relieve that stress. I rely on more of a mental reframe. I have these 8 foundations of health that I teach all my clients, and the 8th one is mindset, because that's extremely, it just changes your life. If what questions you ask yourself when
Mhm.
something hard is happening to you or has been happening to you for a while, just it it can make or break you. For example, why you can ask yourself when you're having pain, why am I always having so much pain every month? Why do I always have to go through this? Or you can ask yourself, how can I start feeling less pain every month? How can I find a better solution, not only to live with the pain, but perhaps to reverse my pain? So it's not, you want to recruit your brain to look for things that will help you find a solution rather than get it to go find evidence that of how you're going to fail and you're going to continue to fail. That's just, I think that's what I use the most. Other than, yeah, I think that answers your question, at least in my
Yeah.
approach. Yeah.
Yeah. What is my body trying to tell me through this
Mm,
pain? I've got a pain in my shoulder. What is my body trying to tell me? What did I do? Did I move in an incorrect way? Did I overextend? What is going on
yeah.
that I can maybe adjust or make a tweak? One of the biggest things that helped me
Yeah.
in eliminating pain from my periods. I'm talking about early
Mm,
labor pain, monthly.
Yeah. Monthly.
Um,
That's right.
so for me, I did the vitamin and mineral supplementation.
Mm,
I also changed the products I was using. I went from disposable to reusable. And through that method,
excellent.
you eliminate a lot of toxins that your body is being exposed to.
Absolutely. Eliminating what's coming into the river, basically.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where I also, 100%, it's so valuable that you brought that up. But a lot of and when I work with people, you can only do so much at once, which
Yeah.
is why what I like to do first is introduce a bunch. If your body is a system full of trash, then, and it's a river full of trash,
Mm-hmm.
then I like to introduce little tiny robots that remove trash slowly over time. And that's why I brought up earlier, for example, why I give people fulvic complexes and humic complexes. They're basically little robots that help toxins get pulled out of your cells. So getting those pulled out of the river. And then the humic complex patrols your bloodstream, is beside that river, and grabs all that trash. And when it becomes heavy enough, it comes down out of the solution of your blood and gets excreted out of your body. So this is something that's so important because it's not only your products.
No.
It's not only the once usable things. It's you walk out into a city and there's cars, there's like air fresheners, there's smell from somebody's laundry down the street, it's everywhere. So I really like to help people internally first and then remove things afterwards later when they've really felt like they have energy, because oh my goodness, how little energy so many people have just to do the basic things.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all that trash just accumulating. Can you imagine not taking out the trash in your apartment for a decade
Or longer.
or longer? Right? It's just like, it's no wonder you're so tired, exhausted, and you can't even think straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
wouldn't.
it really is a journey. It's
Mm,
not something that you
yeah.
can flip a switch and you go
Yes.
from 1 month from being curled up in a ball in pain,
Oh. Mm.
popping Advil or Midol or Tylenol or whatever it is,
Yes.
to to
All the above.
to not to going on life as normal and you don't even notice it. So,
Yes.
but when you get there, my
Oh my
friend,
God.
let me tell you, it is glorious.
I'd love to hear more about your journey. So, how long did it take you? Because it's so true what you're saying. It's so variable among people.
So, for me, I had hormonal issues from the age of 14 onward. And
Mhm.
my healthcare provider at the time, their response was to put me on oral contraceptives. And I was on
Right.
oral contraceptives for 14 years.
Right. Because you're
And
obviously deficient in oral contraceptives as a 14-year-old.
obviously, um,
Wow.
until the point that I started having negative um, side effects from
Yeah.
the oral contraceptives because they are not meant for long-term use. Um,
Yes.
then I had a battle with infertility because my
Okay.
cycle, I was having anovulatory cycles,
Okay.
and um, the healthcare provider I was going to at that point said, no, everything's fine. And I was like, obviously
Mm,
not.
no.
So when my husband and I started trying to have our first child, she
Yeah.
put me on Clomid to force my body to do what it was supposed to do, which didn't support my
Mm,
body enough, which resulted in a miscarriage. So
very common.
through all of that, I got really fed up because I was gaslit. I was told it was all in my head. I was told I was fine and that I was just being dramatic. And I was not heard. I did not feel heard in in any of my healthcare appointments. So I got to the point where I was like, okay,
Right.
they're not going to fix it. So I'm going to start learning. I'm going to educate myself on my body and learn all of the things that I never learned
Yeah.
and figure this out. So after I had my miscarriage, um, it'll be 6 years ago in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
Um, I began down the path of naturopathy and
Yes.
learning alternative methods to taking care of my body. And it was at that point when I went to see my initial appointment with my naturopath, where he broke down for me in English terms how my stress response from my traumatic childhood was
Yeah.
impacting my digestion and my reproductive system. And I was sitting in his office for the first time in my life as a 26-ish, 27-year old woman,
Yeah.
feeling heard by someone with doing medical providing medical care. And it was an
Yeah.
experience for me that I had never had before. It was foreign. But within 6 weeks of that appointment,
Mm,
I was expecting my daughter.
incredible.
And what he did was he cleaned the river. He helped me to clean
Yes.
the river and to calm the river down because it was
That
raging.
too. Yeah.
And and when my body got the support that it needed, it was able to
Yeah.
to have a healthy pregnancy. And I've got a beautiful, vibrant 5-year-old little girl. And
Oh,
her brother was, it took us over a year to get pregnant with our daughter.
yeah.
And it took us a month to get pregnant with my son.
I
When
believe
you
it.
give your body the
Yes.
things that it needs, your body is created to heal itself. We get in the way.
Mm. We do. We do. And we get so many, yeah, I just love how many times you mentioned gaslighting. We get so many of those. What are you talking about? It's completely everything's fine. It
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, sounds normal. And especially for women, it's ah yeah, yours is not the only story for sure where it's just been horrible closing the door in your face. It's
Mm-hmm.
just it's just all in your head. It,
Mm-hmm. 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 So how can our, well, first, let's back up a little bit. What is one action step, one starting
oh yeah.
place that a listener could take today, after
Mm,
they the episode ends and they're ready to take a step forward? Where can they start?
absolutely. Absolutely. And this is somebody who wants to either finally recover painless period, or they're also dealing with sort of infertility and they just can't imagine what's wrong and they really don't want to have a place to start somewhere. I'm often really torn with this question because I want to start everywhere, but absolutely back to the beginning. Because it's what everyone has most control of without buying anything. Here's the thing is what you put in your mouth and what you put on your skin. 100%, these are huge, 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 something that's in your control right now. And protein, it's just where I always want to begin. Not only will you feel a shift in your period symptoms and PMS lowering, you'll also be able to um, feel much better moods, more
Mhm.
stable moods. And I hope that, I mean, it might be years since you felt these stable moods, but here's what to do. Once you have enough protein in your life, it's going to be so much easier for your body to create exactly the regular, normal people hormones that are needed just to feel like you want to wake up in the morning and go get it, you know?
Mhm.
So, okay, how much to take? I really recommend people start with 1 gram of protein for every kilogram that they weigh. It's a pretty good general rule of thumb to start there. If they're exercising a lot, we might be higher. But let's say someone is 70 kilos. So I would definitely want them to be eating 70 grams of protein. What does that look like? It's a lot of eggs, okay? Or it's like, at least if you're eating 3 meals a day, for example, it's like for sure you're eating a full portion of meat every time. And then you want a little bit extra on top of that. And I find that number one, it's really hard for people to cook that much meat or just, buy that much. So I almost always just point them towards something called grass fed, which means clean, and grass-fed whey isolate, which means it's also good for you if you're lactose intolerant. What is this? It's just milk that's concentrated and filtered for the protein content. It's really easy on your digestion. It's very affordable. Even if you buy the highest quality ones, which is the only one I would ever recommend ever. So that would be grass-fed, grass-finished whey protein isolate. If you weigh 60 kilos, you want to aim for 70 grams every day. And that is as easy as 2 scoops of that. And then eating normal for the rest of the day. Whatever you're doing already, it's probably about half of what you need. So she weighs 60 kilos. She's getting about 35 grams on an average day if she just eats as she does normally. So
Mhm.
usually I only have to add 2 more scoops to her life of this protein. And it's like $1.50 per scoop. It's incredibly affordable. And it
Mhm.
all starts with what comes into your body.
Mhm. That's a fantastic first step. So, what I tell my clients is you can't
Mm,
change what you don't acknowledge. So, you have to acknowledge how you feel
nice.
and want to change. So, if you're
Oh my goodness. Yes.
if if you're feeling like crap every month and you
Yeah.
don't like it, you have to want to change. Nobody can make that happen for you until
Yeah.
you take the action. So, um I love that.
I'm
I
so
love that.
glad you brought that up because it's like I'm totally assuming that you're ready. You're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and you're just ready to
Mm,
feel what you deserved. You don't deserve this pain, okay? Number one. And it's time to get better and stop listening to the people that tell you this is just what a woman
it's
deserves.
not normal.
Yeah.
Say it with me.
And
It's not
honestly,
normal.
say it with me. Exactly. And honestly, I think the reason we haven't figured this out until now is because number one, there haven't been a lot of female practitioners allowed until recently. But number two, I don't know about your culture, but it's any I mean you have the Christian base foundation for the culture. And what do they say about Eve? It's just something that she
It was her
deserves. That
it was her punishment.
That's right. It was her punishment. And it's not the same as gaslighting, but it's like what it is, it just stops. It stops all conversation, especially if it's just guys taking care of people's health. They're
Hmm.
like, yeah, it's just you deserved it. It's just, which is nonsense. So starting with that mindset, I appreciate you mentioning that so much, because a lot of people are also deeply spiritually rooted too.
Hmm.
And it's not just, the atheist who just feels awful and just doesn't want to feel awful anymore, but some people believe that they deserve that pain, and that's why they never question it. Yeah.
Yeah, there's that's a whole other episode.
I know, right? Yeah. I never know whether or not to bring it up, but I always get messages from people, or if I've talked to somebody about it, a few weeks later, they're like, yeah, this is really messed up. I just
Hmm.
really thought about that.
Hmm.
And I'm really glad I get to rewrite the story because it's
Hmm.
not just his story.
Hmm.
Mm.
So where can our listeners connect with you further if that's something they desire to do?
Sure thing. I work with people one on one. You can find me on isabellathor.com. I I offer everybody I work with a free 90-minute consultation. It's basically a time where they get a full comprehensive health assessment from me. We look at what each body system is telling us and where they need to prioritize in their health, and we strategize from there. It's a full 90 minutes. And yeah, we get you started on taking action right away,
I love that. I love that. So I will include
right?
a link to Isabella's website in the show notes of this episode so that you can, click on it. It's nice and easy for you. And you can connect with her there if that is something that you desire. Thank you so
Right.
much for joining me today, Isabella. Thank you for the conversation. I have enjoyed it thoroughly. This is a passion of mine. If you
I can tell.
haven't, if you haven't been able to tell, um,
Oh my gosh.
women's health is
Yeah.
an area that the system as a whole
Mm,
has dropped the ball on.
yeah.
They've Yeah, that's a whole other thing, and I am keenly passionate about educating. There's such a misunderstanding about women's health, and our health is different than the health of a man. It's the it's different.
Oh my goodness, say that again. It's just becoming now mainstream knowledge, just trickling in piece by piece, how every single system in our body reacts differently,
Mm-hmm.
modulates itself differently, and like the hormonal requirements for each. Oh my goodness, it's just one set of hormones will make a man depressed and a woman normal and satisfied. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason we're not the same physiologically, although we have the same internal value, 100%.
Yes.
And thank you as well. I love getting to talking to anyone who will listen. And I can only talk about this so much with my husband before we have to change the subject. I adore this. I Thanks, Emily, so much.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much for tuning in to this episode of the Mamahood After Trauma podcast. If you resonated with what you heard, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and share it with a friend who would also benefit, because we rise together. Until next time, Mama, keep shining.